idea of establishing an impact fund, which is very, very interesting. So I was wondering whether you have given your ideas to responsible organizations, because I found this idea very, very useful. So I was asking whether you have made an effort to put your idea to, for instance, the WTO or the WHO, because I found this idea of having an impact fund very useful. And if you did, what was the reactions from these organizations? And in that respect, what strategies can we do in order to implement such good ideas in the world?
Okay, one bonus question and we are done. Just the final one.
Okay, thank you. My question is on the prices for goods, the high price for goods, in relation to the graph that was used to illustrate. I'm trying to imagine if that theory or that principle applies to all goods versus all necessity goods or any other goods. I'm trying to imagine if we relax that graph to reflect different responses of the customers. So will you respond if it applies to all goods or only to necessary goods?
Okay, Professor Thomas Podge, in about 3-4 minutes, kindly please help us address those questions.
We'll try. So thank you. And let me start with the last question. It applies to all goods that are under monopoly, right? If you have a good that is not under monopoly, a good that anybody can offer, then these high prices are unsustainable, because immediately if such a high price is on the market, somebody else will say, I will produce this good and I will sell it cheaper. I will get market share by selling the same product at a lower price. So the curve, the analysis that I gave, is strictly for monopoly products and products that are really badly needed, right? If I have a life-threatening disease, I am willing to pay 1,000 times the cost of production if I have to get rid of the disease. So to the second question, big things that we cannot afford. Well, that's exactly what I'm trying to change, right? It's true that there are big things that you cannot afford, that most people around the world cannot afford. But I'm saying these things are not intrinsically expensive. They're not expensive to make. They're dirt cheap to make. They are sold at prices 1,000 times cost of production or more, and that's why they are so expensive. They are artificially expensive. It would be very easy to set up a manufacturing facility in Tanzania or somewhere in Africa that would mass produce these medicines and sell them for pennies to the population. But you are not allowed to do that under the existing patent regime. So that's what the problem is. Now, with regard to local solution, first question, also partly in the second questions, indigenous remedies and so on. Yes, they would become much more attractive under my proposal. Anything that works, it could be, traditional herbs or whatever, anybody who runs clinical trials on such a remedy and shows that it is safe and effective, shows what the correct dosage is, can register it for impact rewards and can then be rewarded according to the impact. If it works, then there will be a reward. If it doesn't work, there won't be. It will be rewarded strictly on the basis of health impact. But let me say this. There are, as I said, the traditionally neglected diseases, which nobody really studies because the people who have these diseases are overwhelmingly poor. These diseases would become very profitable to research, and with regard to those diseases, African companies do not have the disadvantage that they have with regard to the diseases that have been studied in the West extensively, like diabetes and cancer and heart disease and so on. With regard to those diseases, the West has a huge head start, and it would be very difficult for Africa to make a cutting-edge contribution. But with regard to the diseases of poverty, African biotech companies could easily make a cutting-edge contribution because the West has ignored those diseases so far. And also you have the patient population right in front of your doorstep and can conduct clinical trials and maybe look at traditional remedies and see what has worked in the past and so forth. Final thing about what have been the reactions and what can you do in Africa to support the idea. Of course, I've shopped this idea around. I've shopped it around to governments, my own government in Germany, the Chinese government, the US government. I have supporters in, or we have supporters, I should say, in the US Congress. And so far we haven't gotten very far, and there has been a good bit of resistance. And that resistance comes, of course, from all the IP-heavy industries, right? Industries like entertainment, software, agribusinesses. They all make billions, actually trillions of dollars from their intellectual property, and they really like the system very well just the way it is. They don't really want to experiment with adding something new to the system that might in the long run subvert and undermine it. So there has been resistance, but I am hopeful that the system is so much more useful and so much better also for all of humankind, for example, in the green technology area and in the fighting pandemics area, that sooner or later it will break itself a path. What would be enormously helpful is to have support from Africa and African populations and especially African governments. It would be enormously helpful if the African Union could bring this up in the WHO or the WTO and say, we want to run a pilot of this, we want to try this out, we want to see how it works. So if you see any way of supporting that, I'm sure that would make a big difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Thomas Podge, all the way from Yale University. Professor Podge, we were very much honored to have you here. And on behalf of everybody present here, I would love to give you a word of appreciation and thanks for giving us your presentation on replacing monopolies with impact rewards. Thank you very, very much. And now, ladies and gentlemen, because of the shortage of time that we have right now, we will have just one more presentation remaining. And this is going to come from a member of our Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies, who is going to be introduced here by Mr. Moses Babatunde.
Thank you very much, Dr. Combe. So I'm here to introduce the next keynote speaker and presenter, Dr. Josephat Celestine Muhoza. He will be presenting on the place of philosophy in Tanzanian intellectual formation. Dr. Josephat Muhoza holds a PhD in philosophy from the program run jointly by Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, known as Angelicum in Rome, and also by the Münster Stadtuniversität in Nordrhein-Westfalen. His PhD thesis won a Dasein's Transcendence for Interpretation and Freedom, an engagement in dialogue with Martin Heidegger on the concept of truth. His areas of expertise are logic, metaphysics, ethics, research methods, hermeneutics, phenomenology, and postmodernism. He has a wide range of knowledge and exposure beyond philosophy, including experience in management, economics, and leadership. A warm welcome to you, Dr. Muhoza. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much for the welcome. And my topic is about us. It is coming local, as somebody put it. We are coming back home. On this World Philosophy Day, we have to look at our education system and then look on how philosophy has some impact, if at all, or if it has gained some place in our intellectual formation. In philosophy, we don't give usually answers, but philosophy is about right formulated questions. So the place of philosophy in Tanzania intellectual formation. That is the summary of the whole speech, the whole talk. You can look that I will start with what is philosophy, what is education, how does philosophy relate to education, the philosophical foundation of Tanzanian education, that is education for self-reliance and a national ethic, then the Arusha Declaration is the hallmark of Tanzanian philosophy of education, economic and the political liberalization and their effects on national ethic, and we'll end with the question as usual. Have we lost the track? Well, what is philosophy? Etymologically, we have heard from morning, everybody is saying that. Philosophy is love of wisdom. The philosopher is one who loves wisdom. But then what is wisdom? Wisdom is the foundation of other knowledges. If we go through the world history, we find that in every epoch there have been a knowledge which gives foundation to other knowledges. Among the Mesopotamians, we had the Hammurabi Code, which was actually from Marduk, the god of the Mesopotamians, and that informed the whole system of knowledge and behavior. So the region in that society was the foundation of other knowledges. Then we come to the Jewish and Greek time. Here we find the thinking among the Greeks was the foundation of knowledge. But actually, if you go to Aristotle, politics was called the architectonic art. Why? Because it is politics which decides what other disciplines will teach or will do. So for those who say, I don't want to be concerned with politics, pay attention. Send somebody strange in the parliament, he or she makes the rules to decide what you have to do. because politics is the architectonic art. Among the Greeks, politics was the foundation of other knowledges. Among the Jews, the Decalogue, the 10 Commandments, were the foundation of everything taking place in that society. So we have theistic state, the state under God. And therefore, we come to the Romans. The Romans, they were legalists. The law decided everything. More or less similar to Tanzania today. Today, everything will tell you, is it legal? Is it according to the rules? Then, here what I'm trying to show is that on which foundation should we build our knowledges? Should we build it on the theistic, that means on the God, on the humanistic, or on the legal ground? Those three are so far proposed approaches. What have we taken as Tanzanians from independence? Philosophy by Plato was defined as the use of knowledge for the advantage of man. When, for example, you have knowledge, but it is not advantageous to you, that is not knowledge, according to Plato. For example, you know how to make stones into gold. That is good knowledge. But what does it benefit you if you don't know the use of gold? So philosophy is the use of knowledge for the advantage of man. That is Plato. One scholar, Marvin Rada, defines philosophy as an effort to give unity to human art and the sciences by a critical examination of the grounds of our meanings, values, and the beliefs. I like this definition because philosophy is like a catalyst. Philosophy is like giving a ground for all other knowledges. Why are you doing economics? Philosophy gives you a kind of guide. There should be business ethics. If you have no direction, if you have no ethics in your business, you end up becoming an exploiter, becoming an oppressor. So you need to give ground to your meanings, to your values, and to your beliefs. You know, those who follow religion, who believe, if you are not careful, if you have not given meaning to the ground of your beliefs, you find somebody taking advantage of you. In Africa, we have the famous case of Kibwetere in 1999, who tortured the believers, more than 3,000, in the churches because he told them that was the end of times. They have to sell everything they have, bring to him, so that they are going to heaven next day. Because they had not given grounds to what they believed, they did what he told them, without asking themselves, where is he sending that money while it's the end of the world? Philosophy should give us grounds for what we do, for what we believe. For Mwalimu Nyerere, education must have a purpose, must have a ground. The purpose of education in every society must be liberation of man from all natural and man-made oppressing environment in that society. Education should liberate us. That reminds me that this is the last speech and many are tired. So it will be very short. So please, if I can ask you just to stand up. 1 minute. Stand up. When I say education for service, then you say for service, yes. Education for service. Education for service. That is the aim of education. At the same time, when you say for service, yes, you stretch and balance your metabolism, then sit again. Education for service. Thank you very much. So that was Nyerere. Nyerere wanted education to have a purpose, and that purpose should be the service of the society. His understanding of education makes Mwalimu Nyerere stand tall among many African leaders of his time, who regarded education as a privilege for some class of people to dominate other classes. For him, it wasn't for dominance, but for service. How does philosophy relate to education? Philosophy acts as a compass or guide to other knowledges and skills. Education without philosophy is like a car without a driving wheel or a rudder. It will lose direction. So always there must be a guide in what we call education. So philosophy is the guide Philosophy is education, is the education of education or study of studies. Philosophy of education, together with showing the purpose of education, it provides the foundation on which to build our knowledges. And as you know, knowledge means justified true belief. So when you have these justified true beliefs in any field of human undertaking, you have also to found them. You have to give them some stand. Therefore, the definition of education by Mwalimu Nyerere is the transmission of the accumulated wisdom and knowledges of the society from one generation to the next, and to prepare young people for their future membership and their active participation in its maintenance or development, gets meaning in that connection. In Tanzania, the early years were those of building national unity and national pride, where education was accompanied by development of national ethic and national pride. Nyerere himself did not sit in a class to study philosophy, but he was a philosopher par excellence. Because there are three kinds of philosophers. There are spontaneous philosophers. Those are born philosophers. There are professional philosophers. One of them is standing in front of you. And there are two combined, spontaneous and professional. So Nyerere was a spontaneous philosopher. Everything he did, he founded it on an ideal. His suggestion of philosophy of education was education for self-reliance. And I add, and national ethic. Recognizing the problems of colonial education inherited by the government of Tanzania, Mwalimu started to rectify those ills of colonial education, namely abolition of racial and religious distinctions in education system, making schools available for everyone by nationalizing of schools. I know when I say nationalizing of schools, there are some who get angry. Making education content provided in our schools more Tanzanian. That means making education relevant to the society. Adult education was offered to help those who were not fortunate to go through primary schools at the proper age. Introduction of elimu ya kujitegemea in both primary, secondary schools and the university, and national service training after Form 6, tailoring, cookery, gardening, and so on. These were supposed to be connected with the training in formal education. That all were tailored together with the idea of national ethic and the national unity. I don't know whether there is one who went through that system of education, but I went through that kind of education. I did my primary schools in Kigoma, where I was born. I did my secondary school, O-level, in Songea. And I did my high school in Moshi, and my university in Morogoro. So that alone was education. And that even nobody among the Tanzanians, not many who discovered that it was purposely designed to make national unity. The result of which is you here today. If I just at random take one of the students or even the professors, ask them, what is your tribe? Many of you will start thinking, what is that? Because Tanzanians are not tribal and they don't care about it. Some have fathers who are maybe Mchaga and a mother who is Makonde. Why? Because during those movements of study, they didn't grow in their areas, and therefore they couldn't possibly marry somebody from their groups. And that was the first content of education in Mwalimu Nyerere's imagination. National unity, national ethic. So education was aimed to prepare a Tanzanian for national development, not thinking of not going local. And that actually is now coming back. Not through what? Shule za kata. If I was born in Peramiho, I go to primary school in Peramiho, go to secondary school in Peramiho, and if possible, even a university in Songea. So I become local with a university degree in the head. University degree is supposed to make you universal, not local. But this kind of education, which we are now getting in the so-called Shule za Kata, is in a way regressing what Nyerere already built on the ground of elimu ya kujitegemea. Including in the school's curricula national ethic lessons like national pride, respect for the human beings, and the conflict management skills was also another element Mwalimu Nyerere's education wanted to put into those who go through education system. Now the central piece of education in Tanzania was the Arusha Declaration, and this was the hallmark of Tanzanian philosophy of education. Put in short, the Arusha Declaration meant to liberate Tanzanians and make them grow together as a nation. When being implemented, men did not like it. But the result of it is what we now can still think of as something Tanzanian, something really ours. In the Arusha Declaration, national ethic was outlined and the specific taboos for the public servants were given. The nation itself is given ethical directives. For example, money is not the basis for development. Second, external aid in the form of gifts, loans, and private investments should be understood as such, help for development, not the only means. Third, the duty of educational elites to give back to their society in terms of country love, service offering, and accountability. For hard work, not hard word, but hard work and intelligence are the conditions for development. And 5, necessary conditions for the nation to advance here include 1, land, 2, people, 3, good policies, and good leadership. 6, socialism should be the policy and the self-reliance should be the philosophy. So some mistake socialism of Mwalimu Nyerere with Russian socialism. It wasn't. It was ujamaa. Some thinkers call it ujamii, which means the society should be organized like a family. If we fall together. If we rise together. Already I can see some already raising their eyebrows because it is human nature. We don't like to be pulled down by others. But to be pulled up, everybody is ready. So Nyerere wanted, if you want the pulling up, then you should also be ready for pulling down. So we fall together and we rise together. I can see Dr. Komko telling me 5 minutes. So national ethic is part of education curriculum. This was at the heart of the Arusha Declaration. Ethical code of conduct stipulated clearly what civic servants should adhere to, namely Every government servant must be either a worker or a peasant, and they should in no way be associated with practices of capitalism or feudalism. Second, no town or government leader should hold shares in any company. Third, no town or government leader should hold directorship in any privately owned enterprise. We remember the Zanzibar resolution killed this. For no town or government leader should receive 2 or more salaries. 5, no town or government leader should own houses which he rents to others. 6, for the purpose of this resolution,